Hey guys, Thomas the Jr. here, aka Mustached Tom, here to review the movie Aquaman. So, this movie has been in quite the predicament early on, and it almost seemed like it wasn't going to happen. Uh, and quite frankly, I'm a little bit glad that they decided to hold back this movie as far as they did, even though this is more of a backstory that should have probably came out before the whole team up thing of obviously the Justice League coming together, but still, Wonder Woman's movie did technically also come out after and was a backstory, so it was probably warranted that this was going to happen in the way it did. So, of course, this is going to be a spoiler review for Aquaman, so if you have not seen the movie yet, I'd highly recommend you do so before watching this movie review because there will be spoilers. So, with that being said, we start this movie off in a stormboat in Maine in the early aughts of 1985, where this man finds this Triton woman coming up from the surface and struggling, so he decides to help her out. She does not understand the world that she's come across, but the man slowly assures her that everything is fine, and she eventually relays that she is Atlantia, the Queen of Atlantis, and they continue to spend time together, and it just quickly transitions into winter, and the two of them fall in love and kiss each other, and eventually have a baby boy. So we get the name of our main character, Arthur, or Aquaman. Arthur, of course, a play on the King Arthur of Knights of the Round Table, of course. But nonetheless, so it kind of skips ahead to a few years later where the boy, little Arthur, is getting teased, and his eyes, as he's in this tank, glow yellow as he's talking or communing with this fish or the shark, and the people around him start to freak out, and it cuts immediately after that. So, it does some things before that, like the queen going back to the ocean in order to essentially calm tensions of the water and keep things at bay there. So it does this great transition into the aqua tank I was referring to and his latent abilities, and it cuts to then present day. So we don't get much in the terms of him as a child until later in the movie, which I think is an interesting way to go about it instead of just going through each day of his life, because it's just called Aquaman and it's about that. So you get a little bit of that hint of that backstory with anyways, we cut to present day, and we see that these pirates that are geared up and ready to go are taking over this sub, and one of them wields a very special knife. I'll just call him the knife leader until his other name comes up. Until later on, I will just refer to him as that, the knife guy. So he gets this knife from his father, and the two of them are about to successfully get their little prize, but they then get hit. So, as it would turn out, Aquaman has, he's already referred to Aquaman at this point, by the way, by them at the very least. So, he lifts up the sub to the surface, and Aquaman starts his attack on these guys, starting to take them out, using parts of the boat in a quite a unique way of attacking, using his environment to his advantage. saving the people that have been captive. And the only confusing part about this is that this guy was apparently waiting for Aquaman. They never really explain why? Question mark. He just wanted to kill him for some unknown reason. Yeah, that part did never really get answered, I don't think, to the best of my ability. But nonetheless, so Aquaman gets a little surprised by some of the men in there, the father at the very most. But he does spear the dad into this, like, trapped area, and the son shoots towards Aquaman, and then they both get stuck. And Aquaman decides to leave them because they are pirates and they did the bad. So Aquaman decides that is the best decision. So the dad puts up this bomb to show that his son that he should go out and leave, and he does. So Aquaman goes to his dad, and the two of them are watching television, the news about what was just transferred. And Aquaman's like, yeah, I didn't do that. And the father's like, yeah, you did it. And then he's like, yeah, I did it. And these guys behind him all come up to him saying that, it kind of does this joke where it beats the expectations. These guys look like the generic thugs, but it turns out they all just wanted a bunch of pictures with Aquaman, so pretty good joke. Breaking the expectations. So, nonetheless, after that, he goes back underwater. Meanwhile, under the water, which, by the way, I'm just going to say it now, this movie has some of the best DC transitions ever. In any DC movie, I think this just has it hands down. These transitions are fantastic as they move from location to location time and time again so seamlessly as the shark crew and the seahorse crew are facing off against each other. And among them, one actor of Willem Dafoe is among them as this sort of vizier, or the second in command, essentially. So we learn that Aquaman has a brother, this blonde guy. I'm not sure we ever get his name, so I'll just call him the brother. So the brother wants to rise up against the humans, and he wants to, by that logic, become what is known as the Sea Master. But before that can all go down, they get attacked by a large group of torpedoes. So the potential Seamaster goes to take down the sub while all these other people are watching on. Meanwhile, while all that's going down, and after he takes down the sub, this red-haired lady, who we later learn on is, I believe her name is Mary or something like that, is trying to get Aquaman to join the forces and take the rightful place as king, but he denies that offer. The son, the one that he tried, the pirate, I'll just call him pirate for now, God, tries to, he sees these underwater warriors, and it turns out that the brother was paying the son, the pirate, to essentially attack, to spoil them in this war, get them all up in arms with each other. And again, for whatever reason, now he does have a reason at this point, the pirate wanting revenge now. Before, it was just like, oh, I'm just going to kill him for blank reason. But nonetheless, so now he has a reason. So nonetheless, the two teamed up, and then while that's going on, we cut to a tsunami that rises and piles up after Aquaman and Mira, and the two of them together save his dad. So the news anchors, while it's going on, are arguing about what's happening with all the sea stuff, making its way back to the surface, all the things that we have thrown down there of that nature, all the boats as well, all the submarines coming back to the shore. And as I mentioned earlier in the review, and recap, that Defoe's character, we get to see him now teaching Aquaman as a growing kid about the sea life and how to go underwater, how to swim faster, stuff of that nature. So, as that's going on, we get to the two of them, that being Aquaman and Mira, the two of them going underwater to essentially swim back to this little boat, and they start to move along, and they make their way to Atlantica. So the two of them enter in, and they find this little hidden boat trove that is hidden away, and Defoe's character sets up essentially this fetch quest to get the Triton, and he has this little piece that can lead them to this puzzle. And he also talks about how the past and how the original Atlantic leader came to be, and how he specifically went on for too much power. But as that's going on, they suddenly get attacked, and these big red soldier guys come in and they fight him off. Aquaman is placed under arrest and then is set up to meet with his brother. The two of them make a dueling bet. If Aquaman wins, he gets to be the king, and if he loses, that's it. There's nothing left. And the brother gets to get his little army together. He gets to become the Sea Master, as he wants to be referred to as. So the two of them, after some meet and greet and talks with Defoe and Mira, the two of them talk up with the brother, who were arranged to be married, as we learn. But the two of them get ready to brawl in front of this huge audience, and their little stature shown, and then the two of them fight each other. And of course, this early on in the movie, the younger brother of Aquaman starts to gain the upper hand, but is quickly saved by Mira. So she brings them back to this small boat, and we enter this small boat chase scene, where they get taken down, almost, and they decide to hide in a whale because Aquaman knew about Pinocchio without actually ever reading the book, which is bizarre, but whatever. And some kind of weird music plays over as they move on to the first location that they were referred to as in the Sahara Desert. So the two of them talk about what she had sacrificed to join him in this little adventure. So she gets the signal and decides to dive down into the water. Into the sand, I should say. And as they are going about that, we cut back to the brother and the pirate son, and him getting hooked up with all of this gear, and he goes to work on this suit that can charge up the device that he was given to take out Aquaman, and it's done through this music montage, and it's kind of but we know that he's building up his new alter ego. Nonetheless, Aquaman and Mera find the underpassage under the sand, and they place the tool, and seeing nothing happens, and she decides to collect his Aquaman's sweat, and the device turns on. They're giving their next hint to go to Italy, essentially, and give it to this king guy or whatever. And of course, more music pops up as Mera sees some of the people around, and she's like showing off for this little girl, and she's starting to go like, "Hey, the humans aren't that bad." And so, these this fisherman group we cut to, want to teach the humans, essentially, at some point, but the brother is like, "No, we're gonna take you out," and he does, leading one of this daughter slash princess to essentially take command and follow him. So he's essentially collecting his army based off of these seven other groups. And he's going to each one to take each one out and declare dominance, as well as declare unity on top of that dominance. So, while all that's going on, Aquaman is figuring out this puzzle. And while that's going on, they get their heading, and soon soon he's attacked by the pirate son, and the two of them begin to fight. And while that's going on, Mera is also fighting, and we cut back to between them in this long shot that you've probably seen in the trailers between Mera and Aquaman, both fighting. Mera fighting the guards, him fighting the pirate son, and the smooth transition from back to back going between the two fights. So the pirate son declares himself the Black Mantis. I assume this is one of Aquaman's main villains. Probably won't. Besides the initial start, he does become probably one of DC's better villains. At least I feel he's better than the one that we see in what was it, Wonder Woman? I feel like that's the closest comparison I want to make. So there's that. So there's more guys, and the two of them have to flee for their lives. So, going back to some more smooth transitions, Aquaman saving the people while all these attacks are going on. Mera saving herself from these attackers that are going after her. And then Aquaman going after Black Mantis some more. So he kind of ends the Black Mantis rather quickly with these wrapped chains, like one of those ones that you take down a boat with. He just like hooks him into that, and then eventually gets him knocked down into the water. I don't know if that is the end of him, but boy, it was that kind of brutal. But he was also injured in the battle, as it was intense. There was a lot of back and forth, and now he wakes up on this boat. So him and Mera are now on the boat. They are kind of getting a little romantically, like, hinting at each other now, or she has kind of been earlier on in the movie, but there's more of that going on now. Meanwhile, the brother talks about how Defoe's character ended up being this traitor, training Aquaman. As we saw in the flashbacks, he actually knew it all along, so he has Defoe's character taken away. So, these fish-like creatures attack both Mera and Aquaman on their little boat. And boy, oh boy, was that intense, as there are so many of them, and they get trapped inside with these little two lights that they light up to guide them as they dive into the water, as just the swarm of these fish-like creatures just continuously chase them down, and they eventually swim their way into what looks like a vortex, and they temporarily get separated, but he does like save her from something that we see come to get them. So we see that they move into, I think they called it the Earth's secret core or something like that. And there, Aquaman sees his mom. She takes off this little helmet that she's had, and they do the reveal, and she's like apologizing for not being there for the 20 years that he's grown up, and he's also sorry, and they're both sorry. But she's like, you have to become king, but you have to go in this little sea trove to become the king. So he goes to get this trident that he was tasked to get to from in the beginning, and he is met with this kraken-like creature who says that, you're not this hero, you're this half-breed. They use this term a lot throughout the movie. The brother calls him that, this creature calls him that, the people around him call him that. And he's like, and the kraken-like creature's like, you're not this hero, this king, you're not like a worthy king, and he's like, nah. And he gets like slapped around. He tries using his skills, that the ones that specifically allows him to communicate with sea life, and he's able to talk to her to try to this kraken creature to see if he can grab the Triton on his own. So this kraken creature allows this, and sure enough, he grabs the Triton. And when he comes out, he is decked out in the gear that you see on the poster. So, while that's going on, the Atlanteans, army, the brother, who is leading this charge, have already made it to their final group, this final target, and this war breaks out between the two sides, Atlantis and whatever group this is. I wasn't keeping track of each group's name, sorry, but anyways, the brother is kind of driven back, and he comes up, that being Aquaman, with, I think it was either the same creature or a separate, different big creature. Nonetheless, it is very kaiju-sized, and Triton uses it to, Aquaman uses it, using the Triton, to guide this thing. Nonetheless, Aquaman gets all the sea life on his side, and he meets up back with Mira, and they share an intimate kiss. Here, as this war is raging around them. Speaking of references, if you want to make a Disney reference here, because they own Marvel, haha. It definitely reminds me of the Pirates of the Caribbean movie where Orlando Bloom is getting ready to propose to Keira Knightley's character, forget her name in the movie, and they're fighting as they're trying to attempt to propose. So this kiss is happening as this whole war is happening around them. After that, Aquaman and his brother charge at each other, and Aquaman breaches into the surface, taking the brother with him, and so everyone else sees this happening, and they decide to surface as well to see who will win. So Aquaman and his brother ensue in this fight to become the true king of the sea. There's a little bit of bad lighting behind them for a bit, but other than that, the fight is pretty cool. So Aquaman, using one of the techniques we saw earlier in the film, the one that we see Defoe's character teach him, to essentially deflect all incoming attacks to drive the brother back. And in a motion, he decides to spare the brother and the brother is given up after his little Triton is broken. So when the battle is over, the brother character gets to see his mother, and she relays to him that he has been highly misguided. So the brother goes under arrest in peace. Meanwhile, we cut back to the house, or sea house, I guess I'll just call it, and the wife of the husband of Aquaman's parents, finally reunite after all those years, and they hug it out, they kiss it out. It's very cool, very romantic. And Aquaman goes into a little mini monologue and declares himself Aquaman, and that is the movie. There were a few, besides little music things that I felt were a little bit distracting. I definitely really enjoyed this movie a lot more than probably what I was displaying when I was describing each scene. Definitely really strong. I would say this is very, if it were to compete with another DC movie, I would say it's very in line with Wonder Woman. Again, I'm going to repeat what I said earlier. This, by comparison, has the best transitions out of any DC movie I've ever seen. Just the beautiful way it goes from land to sea, sea to land, fighter to fighter, group to group, as that scene occurs. It's so well done, so well shot. The underwater area is very beautiful. Atlantica is very beautiful. It's very bright. It's very vibrant. The way things move around in there is very cool. Aquaman as a character definitely goes through a pretty interesting arc, being, denying where he's kind of been placed by everyone else, particularly Mira, who's like, hey, you kind of have to do this because the circumstances are going to be really, really bad if you don't. And it kind of goes like, yeah, he has to be king, but they also have him step up as a hero, which is where he talks to his mom. That conversation comes up. And hey, both of his parents live, so he doesn't have the terrible, terrible, like, backstory of, like, this very depressing Batman who, he loses his parents. No, that's not the case, but anyway, getting back focused on Aquaman, he definitely has a very, hero's journey. He gets this MacGuffin, the setup piece to find the puzzle. It does kind of drag a little bit when they're trying to, like, figure out, like, where the puzzle pieces go. Luckily, I do think that the action set pieces come at the exact right time when they need to, just when you're like, okay, we need to hurry this little puzzle piece along so we can get back to the action. I do think that the pacing between those two things is good enough. I definitely think that they spend enough time of, like, okay, you gotta kind of just solve the puzzle, okay, move that along, and boom. I do kind of admit that the conveniency of the explosions kind of always happen. Like, it always feels like it's a bit cliche-ish in a way, too, at the same time. Like, we're just about to finish up, boom! Every single time it happens. But other than that, I still think it's a really solid movie. Again, besides the initial Black Mantis quarrel, where for whatever reason he's like, oh, I just want to fight Aquaman, like, for no reason, I do think the added tribulation of him losing his father to Aquaman doing nothing kind of gave him that boost. And interestingly enough, he's not even the final character that we have to face in this movie. It ends up being a quarrel between him and his brother, that being Aquaman's brother. So I thought that was a really interesting way of doing it. I did think that, again, the last battle, but taking that little light was a little distracting, but it didn't. I wouldn't say it ruined the last sequence, but it was a little distracting, but not too distracting. Even with all that, I'm gonna say that Aquaman is close to a 7 or even 8 out of 10. I feel like it's right there at the precipice of being an 8 out of 10. Definitely a very solid movie. I really enjoyed it. And if you enjoyed this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out that link in the description. I head you over to my Patreon page. Any donations are greatly appreciated. Until next time, everyone. Bye-bye.